Wow. Last week was a crazy year. That's the meme, I guess. Donald Trump is doing what people are referring to as, I guess he's overwhelming the system. He is implementing so many rapid fire changes that Democrat activists cannot keep up. And it is brilliance. It has been an amazing past 2 weeks. Donald Trump has done a tremendous job. And just today, Canada and Mexico have caved instantly. Donald Trump said, you know what, 25% tariffs, 10% tariffs on China. What can they do? Trump was asked, what can they do to stop this? Nothing. Sure enough, before anything kicks in, both the president of Mexico and Justin Trudeau called up and said, please, for the love of all that is holy, do not destroy our countries, our economies. And they caved, and they're going to help secure the borders, exactly what Trump was saying needed to be done. And that just shows that Trump's been playing this whole time. Now, a lot of people have been saying the tariffs were good because we need to restore American manufacturing and industry, and that's true too. But hey, two things can be true at the same time, and this was a win-win situation for Donald Trump. Either they agree to secure the border, or we bring back American industry, and that's what we're going to have to do because these countries are not playing fair. Then we got, holy crap, probably what may be one of the biggest stories of our lifetime. This is okay, Marco Rubio wants to reform USAID, but Trump and Elon are saying they should shut it down. USAID is a very, very interesting organization that has long been accused of effectively being a CIA front to funnel resources to activist organizations to stage soft and hard coups around the world. Among other things, they're also accused of funneling money to activist organizations, which then kick back money to the United States, which then finds its way in the hands of other politicians, which are used to get them reelected. It's very, very weird. And the files that we get out of USAID when the information gets released, assuming it does, and I don't see why it wouldn't, it's going to be massive. So, my friends, we have a lot of news to break down. There's a ton of stuff. FBI threatening to protest, to leak information. Elon saying you'll be fired. People saying, got Chuck Schumer saying it's a shadow government. It's funny. Democrats were calling for a shadow government just before the election, and now they're mad that Elon's doing it. Well, it's not really. Elon's acting as essentially a volunteer advising the president. There's nothing you can do about it. We got a lot more news, but before we do, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. Holy crap, Ian sold out again. Ian sold out of Graphene Dream. This dude's, it's nuts. This is the highest selling product we have, and it's sold out. I have no idea why. It must be the best coffee ever. But we got Phil, 2 weeks till Christmas.
Yep.
Although we're now a month and a half from Christmas. Still, if you want to get Phil dressed like a Santa Claus, it's available. Gingerbread coffee and everybody's favorite Appalachian Nights and Rise with Roberto Jr. are available. Of course, my friends, head over to Timcast.com. Click join us, become a member. The Green Room Show is back. And I would describe Mary and Terry's Green Room before the show got started as spicy. Very interesting. Discussing surrogacy, pregnancy, porn, OnlyFans, and degeneracy and debauchery. And it's probably good it's uncensored and on the members only portion. But that's available. That should be up on the website very soon. But we're bringing back the Green Room Show. We're going to be working on documentaries. And of course, we're going to have our members only uncensored show coming up just after this show at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. And as always, head over to boonieshq.com. And, I'm going to go ahead and recommend the 28th Amendment skateboard. Now, I know this one's largely for fans of chickens. If you're not a fan of chickens, then something is wrong with you. But this is the gag 28th Amendment, which says that the right to keep, bear, and breed chickens shall not be infringed, available up at boonieshq.com. So don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. For those that are wondering why I was gone all week, I had a bone graft. I had some dental surgery done. Nothing you can do. You got to do it when you got to do it. You got to do what you got to do. And unfortunately, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Sarandli in DC, who did a bang-up job, masterfully done, painless, 20 minutes, easy. And in all seriousness, I was actually pretty good so that was Friday. Saturday, I was fine. Sunday, I was fine. And I was like, I think I'm going to be good to go Monday. It was really well done. I had a reaction to the lidocaine, which no one could have predicted. And that basically took me out for a week. So, but they did a bang-up job over at the Dr. Sarandli. She was really, really great. She was amazing, and I really appreciate that the help she gave. I told her I'd give a shout-out because I'm not kidding. I've been to a lot of dentists, and she was really great. So thank you so much. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got Terry Schilling.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I was telling part of the conversation we had earlier was about surrogacy because I have 7 kids. So anyway, I'm excited to be here. Some of my kids are watching tonight, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be filtered.
Family friendly.
I am who I am, regardless of if my children are present. So thanks so much for having me.
Right on. Mary's hanging out.
Yes, my name is Mary Morgan. I co-host Pop Culture Crisis here at Timcast, and I guess all you need to know about me is that I'm just a girl and I don't have any political opinions. You can go watch The Green Room to find that out. Hi, Phil.
She's lying. Hi, I'm Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
The biggest news, of course, for everybody who's already noticed, I'm wearing a wedding ring.
Check it.
That's it.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we had Allison and I had planned the wedding for some time, for a while, but we're just super busy. She does administrative work 6 hours a day. I do the show, morning show, night show, and so we're just working all the time. But we knew, we had to go and do it, so we did a courthouse wedding. It was very nice, but we're planning to do a big family ceremony in the summer. This was just because we wanted to be married, and we went and got married. And then I tweeted, Trump's first month was the best month of my life, which was an inside joke to literally just me and my wife. And I showed her, and we both just started laughing. And then it got like 5,000 retweets from people who were like, it has been great, hasn't it? And then some liberal was like, what, or I don't know if it was a liberal, but they were like, what has Trump even done that you're so excited about? And I was like, no, I got married. I never said Trump did anything. Like, his first month was the best month for me. You know what I mean? You put those together. So there you go, everybody. And I will not be wearing the ring. So thank you all so much. Leave your comments and super chats if you want to shout out and give me. I see everybody congratulating me and everything. I really do appreciate it. Or just say nothing and call me stupid. I don't want to. But let's jump into the news. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, from NBC. Trump and leaders of Canada and Mexico say tariffs will be delayed 1 month after talks. Guys, I love Donald Trump. He has exceeded all of my expectations. This is absolutely incredible. When he announced the tariffs, I started clapping and cheering because I can't stand that we have given away so many of our jobs and our industries to Canada and Mexico to the point where 80% of their exports are coming to us. Okay, well, what about our jobs and the people who work here who need to have a job, teach their kids how to have jobs, do hard work? We're not just going to become a bunch of gluttonous, lazy, partying, because we're giving away all our jobs to these other countries. But it's win-win because it was going to go one of two ways. They were going to beg Donald Trump for whatever they could possibly give him so that he would lift these because this will destroy the economies of Canada and Mexico. And then Trump said, okay, I want troops on the border. So Canada, I think they're going to be doing like a fentanyl czar of some sort. They're going to be enforcing border protections. Mexico is sending additional 10,000 troops to the border. And there's been other concessions. So Donald Trump just waves the pen. And instantly, Canada and Mexico are like, okay, we'll take this problem that you're having seriously now. Masterfully done. There's a whole bunch of other stuff to get into, of course, with like Elon Musk, Doge, and USAID. But we'll start here. Man, how you guys doing?
The people have been like wigging out about the whole situation with Canada and with Mexico as if this wasn't the big ask, as if this wasn't a negotiation. It was just like, oh, Donald Trump's going to put these tariffs on, and they're going to be there forever, and they're going to be there until the whole country falls apart, and until everything, burns up. They're acting as if this wasn't intended on getting a deal out of both Canada and Mexico. That's Donald Trump's MO. Mm-hmm. And we had 4 years of him as a president already doing things like this. But yet the left is in such disarray now. They refuse to look at reality, I guess. I mean, they were harping on eggs for like the first week and a half of his presidency. They've lost any semblance of direction. And I don't have it in front of me, but there was I think it was a Wall Street Journal article about how totally in disarray the Democrats are. And so it's almost as if it's worth nothing to listen to anything they say just because they have no idea what to say. All they're saying is whatever they're back to the whatever Donald Trump decides he's going to do, we're against it. He could be it's as bad as Donald Trump says drink water is good, so we're going to try to drink sand.
They can't give him one good day.
No, God, no.
No, and because it's not about that. It's always about power with the Dems. They don't really care. He could actually save the economy and give everyone a horse. Everyone could make $1 million and never be prosperous, and they'd still find something to attack him on. They'd call him a racist. And the thing is that's really been killing me is they're losing and they're not changing their strategy. Right. What Donald Trump just taught the American people, by the way, was that America has leverage over all these other nations. We don't need to be the punching bag. We don't have to accept things the way they are. We have 325 million Americans that buy products from everywhere else in the world. Let's leverage that. I saw a video this morning. 40% of the Canadian economy is based on their exports to the United States.
Whoa.
That is huge leverage, right? And I didn't realize that. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking, Trudeau was running his mouth for way too damn long.
Yeah.
So much tough talk, right?
Oh my gosh.
My favorite thing about tariffs is that no one gets to vote on them. Hate voting. Hate voting. Hate democracy.
The Democrats' unfavorable now is 57% with the most recent Quinnipiac University poll. I don't know that there's anything that they can do to fix this until they get their own house in order. We might talk about it later, but there was they voted on who was going to run the DNC, and they were doing things like land acknowledgments. They were doing things like
Let him cook, bro.
talking about pronouns and stuff, things that clearly, regardless, I know there are people out there that are going to say, well, Donald Trump won on the economy and he won on illegal immigration. I think that's true, largely. But I think the thing that turns the average person off about the Democrats, right, the things that they're just like, I don't like that stuff, is the whole woke stuff, the whole, trans stuff, the LGBT stuff, the fact that you have to hate America, which, whether they want to admit it or not, when they're doing things like land acknowledgement, you're saying that you're ashamed of the country that you're in. No society in human history has ever given credit to the society that came before them, that they essentially conquered.
Oh, you're talking about like mud flood in Tartaria, right?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The indigenous people, they have land acknowledgement to the Tartaria. You don't know about mud flood theory?
No.
You guys know mud flood?
No.
There's a conspiracy theory that there was a great civilization that ran Earth or whatever, and then there was a great mud flood, and it buried all the buildings. And people actually believe this. And they think that we're discovering these old buildings and pulling them out of the dirt and living in them. Yeah. Anyway, so I made a joke tweet about how we're going to conquer Canada because I saw all of these Canadians really angry on X. And so I tweeted something like, after we destroy the Canadian economy, their will to resist will erode, and we will march in and put Canada in its rightful place as a, what did I call it? As a territory of the United States with no political representation. Yeah, I got so many death threats from that.
Is that why the one?
Yeah. So
Canadians?
From Canadians.
But they're supposed to be so nice.
What kind of Canadians?
Yeah, that's
so we got a bunch of death threats, and then I posted one of the threats that was the most egregious, and it got like 2 million hits or whatever. Yeah. And the guy said he was, among other things, I'm not gonna. It's very vulgar. He was going to do horrible things to my family and sell them to rabbit Indians. And rabbit, yes, like rabbits.
Does he mean like what kind of Indian?
I don't know.
Rabbit kinds.
The rabbit. And so people started posting pictures of rabbits wearing headdresses, and then rabbit Indian started trending on X.
Yeah, Grok was busy making pictures of rabbits with Indian headdresses or rabbits in India, like India from the country.
That's kind of.
This is the thing. Like we've talked quite a bit how Democrats don't understand humor. That's why The Onion sucks now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, Canadians are just like Democrats. They genuinely thought my tweet about us conquering Canada through
it's legit.
They think it's real, and they're angry about it. Like to the point where we're getting a bunch of death threats from these people, and like we have to take it seriously.
Yeah, you have to. Because they're all unhinged. The type of person that's that unhinged that would send a death threat is exactly the type of person that would go crazy and do stuff like that.
Look, it's a bad idea to make death threats. It's a bad idea to do that kind of stuff on the internet.com. Like,
they know who you are. They can find you, and that's forever.
Yeah.
So they're losing right now, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, they're losing their mind.
We're all like in a really good mood, right?
I'm in a good mood.
I'm in a great mood. You know what really bugs me is I tweeted what would I say? Like the era of the extraction of America is finally over. No country that can only, or what, I forgot how I phrased it, but any country that requires U.S. subsidy in order to survive shouldn't. And this means any and every country. The idea that you said, 40% of their economy is based off exports to the United States, that ain't our problem. If they want to be a vassal state, okay, and they want to be subservient and then live off our good graces, fine. But the idea that we would, for Canada and Mexico, forego our own manufacturing base, and not necessarily manufacturing, but any industry. I know there's some things Canada does we can't. They got tar sands. I know Mexico makes avocados. We don't make nearly as many. That's fine. I don't think 40% of the Mexican economy is avocados. What happens is we send our auto plants to Mexico and say, you do the work and we'll buy the car from you. That only works for like 20 years. You get fat profits, but then the next generation has no jobs. So they make no money and there's no economic access, and then your country implodes. So it's time to put a stop to this. Now, I like what Trump did. The tariffs are going to be a pause for a month because he's basically saying, we'll see if you follow through.
Well, but the real reason why he's doing this is not economic. It's because with Trudeau's lax immigration policies and his virtue signaling, what's been happening is Canada is actually the bigger threat to the United States when it comes to unsecured border. There were, in that video I saw this morning, they said that there were 150 encounters and arrests of terrorists at the southern border, but there were over 350 of these arrests at the northern border with Canada. And that's because Trudeau is out there signaling, saying he's not going to do anything to stop this illegal immigration. So the guys that really want to attack America, they've been going through Canada to get to the United States because it's actually less treacherous and they're more welcome there.
Yep. Well, it's time to put a stop to it.
I mean, look, anything that needs to be done, or the government, the federal government and ICE and Homeland Security should go to any lengths to stop illegal immigration coming into the United States. Doesn't matter if they're coming from Mexico or if they're coming from Canada. If we have to build a frost wall along the northern border, that's fine with me too. We can have the hot wall and the cold wall. I'm fine with it. It's perfectly fine to build walls. I don't care, especially if these other countries, our neighbors, are facilitating or allowing for foreign nationals to come into the United States without putting, legitimate effort into preventing them from coming here, when these people are intending to do damage to our country and hurt American citizens.
You're saying we need a Castle Black.
What's a Castle Black?
Game of Thrones.
I guess.
The fort where they had the big wall on the north of ice to keep the White Walkers out?
Yes. Give me a frost wall to keep the frost backs out.
Is it offensive to call Canadians White Walkers?
I don't know.
Never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Probably. We should
They come
say
from
it.
Everything's offensive, so let's just err on doing it. Let's just call them White Walkers.
Everything is offensive, especially to people that are upset about the whole situation with immigration. If they're upset about the immigration situation, anything you say to them is going to set them off. You can say, we want you to stay in Canada, and they're going to call you all kinds of names.
Isn't it funny that Democrats are all basically admitting that they illegally hire illegal immigrants? Mm-hmm. They're like, but if you deport these people, then who's going to pick your crops and clean your toilets? And it's just like, Americans. Next question.
Well, it's a red herring. They don't pick our crops. It's like literally 90% of all the illegals that are here are in major cities. They're not out there farming. They're not making sure our crops don't go bad. They're in major cities taking jobs from Americans.
But I have an answer to that when they say, like, if you deport all these people, who's going to pick our crops? I'm like, well, there's a bunch of FBI agents, U.S. attorneys, and DEI coaches who are looking for work.
That's right.
So, job openings available. Yeah.
I mean,
but it's all just it's BS. But I just think it's funny that Democrats are like basically saying we do this.
But Tim, the more important thing though that I'm seeing and that I'm loving is there is this IDGAF mentality amongst everyone in the White House. They don't care what the media says to them. Stephen Miller just
awesome.
Last week he lectured Jake Tapper on live. It's these guys don't care. They were beaten up and bruised. And here's the other thing. Trump and his entire team had 4 years to look back at their first term, what went wrong, what went right, and to really plot and plan. Meanwhile, they were trying to destroy this entire apparatus that they built. It's beautiful. Not a lot of two-term presidents get 4 years to look back at their first term and assess what they did right and wrong. And that's why I think we're seeing such a big change.
Literally only one other.
That's right. That's right.
What
That's
do you
right.
think that he got wrong the first time?
I think he thought it was going to be a traditional American presidency where there's the play fighting, but at the end of the day, you're going to get an infrastructure bill done. You're going to, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they're going to fight you like they fought George W. Bush, but it's not serious. They're not actually going to try and put you in prison. They're not actually going to try and kill you and do all this stuff. But they were serious. This was about power for them.
He thought that they were going to treat him as a member of the club because he got elected. So the way that the government behaves is there are certain people that are acceptable to be president, and then there are people that are not. I think every single person that's been a president has either been in government somehow before, or they were a general. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's been anyone else that came directly from corporate America, with a business background. And so they essentially treated him as if he was not a member of the club. And they treated him like that from day one, actually before, because they were spying on him. The FBI, I'm not sure if I think it was the FBI that had tapped his tapped Trump Tower. So they treated him as if he was hostile to the country from day one, because they were never going to let him in. The goal was to keep him out. And you could see that with the FBI, with people like Peter Strzok. We're saying, don't worry, we're going to prevent this from happening. We won't let it happen. I forget the woman that he was having an affair with, that he was texting, but the FBI had aligned against him. You had everyone basically in government was working against him. So his biggest mistake was believing that they were going to allow him in, and believing that hiring people that were clearly, for lack of a better word, swamp monsters, for lack of a better word, those people would listen to him as opposed to work against him. And then the 4 years that he was kind of off in the wilderness, that's where he really had the ability to look back on his presidency, see what they were doing. Obviously, he had to deal with what they were doing. They were trying to, they impeached him after he'd left office, which is unprecedented. Twice they impeached him after he left office. They tried to use lawfare on him. They tried to throw him in jail. They created felonies out of misdemeanors. They said, oh, these were felonious actions, when there was no underlying crime to actually elevate them to felonies. So he saw what the deep state and what the bureaucracy, what the government itself wanted to do to him. And he was like, okay, well, how do I stop this if I win again, or when I win again? And he obviously knew that if he didn't win again, he was going to go to jail. And there's a lot of other people that would end up in jail too. I honestly, truly believe that people like Tim, people like and other pundits and other people that are involved in the political space, they would either end up in jail, or they would be run out of the business.
Yeah, they would have Nixoned and resigned.
Yeah,
right. And I think Trump, to his credit, he learned from the Nixon coup, let's call it that, because that's essentially what it was. But he learned from that, and he didn't back away, and he stuck with it, and he fought him even more, violently than he did before.
Yeah.
I just want to say, before we move on to the next story, to all of our Canadian viewers, I know that most of you don't like your own government and don't agree with the way they're running things, and you want Canada first too, and I respect that. So hopefully the future we get to is a stronger Canada for Canadians, with a government that the people actually need and support. And the United States has much of the same thing. But let's jump to this next story from CNN. Elon Musk said Donald Trump agreed. USAID needs to be shut down. This may be one of the biggest stories, if it happens, of our generation. Now, the latest update from the Wall Street Journal, Marco Rubio wants USAID to undergo overhaul, backs off of full shutdown. Secretary of State plans to reorganize the foreign assistance agency that Elon Musk and Doge are pushing to eliminate. USAID. It's not USAID. There's no aid. Shout out to Mike Benz. It's the U.S. Agency for International Development. And what they basically do is they funnel money to various activist organizations around the world. That's literally what they do. The accusation, I believe RFK Jr. talked about this, was that USAID was funding revolutionary groups in Ukraine to overthrow the government in the Maidan protests, culminating in the ousting of, I believe it was Viktor Yanukovych. Was his name Victor? Maybe it was, I don't know. Yanukovych was the president's name. Was it? It was Victor? Oh, okay, there you go. So basically, the accusations, USAID is basically a CIA front for U.S. soft coups around the world. A lot of this money, this is crazy, Here's the accusation. U.S. government funds USAID. That money goes to various NGOs and activist groups around the world. Those various NGOs give money to various other organizations, which somehow that money finds its way into the election campaigns of politicians. This may be the system by which the deep state keeps its cronies in office indefinitely because you can't go up against them. They're basically getting money from the government. They're taking your money and they're paying themselves to run again. How do you compete with that? If they get shut down, it's going to be massive. Either way, if information comes out from Doge, from Elon Musk and his crew, about what they've been doing, and we uncover serious malfeasance, I think it's a strong possibility. This could be massive, like one of the biggest scandals in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Well, James O'Keefe did this whole a series of exposés going up to for Act Blue. He would go up to these old ladies' houses and ask them about if they had ever contributed, $75,000 in 16,000, donation increments, and they were finding out that Act Blue was acting as like a money laundering scheme for the Democrats, and I think this is probably part of it. I mean, this old lady, like one of them, only made or she's on retirement income, so it's like just Social Security. You can't do $75,000 in a year,
right?
And definitely anyone to make 16,000 donations in a year is like, you're really working hard just making donations itself. But this is all front. I mean, there's got to be a connection here.
I just want to shout out look. We need to get cash confirmed. We need have they confirmed any? Who have they confirmed?
I'm gonna look right now.
Like obviously like Hegseth and stuff, but I mean of the remaining, they're delaying it. James O'Keefe went to these people's homes, as you mentioned. One of these old people, he's like, did you make $200,000 in donations to Act Blue? And they're like, what? I don't have that kind of money. And he's like, are you making 47 donations of $5, 47 donations per day of $5 to $20? And they're like, no. Some entity is using Act Blue, it appears, to funnel money through people's names that they've stolen into politicians and PACs and other people's hands. This needs to be criminally investigated. The preponderance of evidence is in front of our faces.
Yeah. So for a little context, USAID was created in the 60s by
Kennedy.
JFK.
By executive order.
Yeah, by executive order. Now, there was a bill passed, right? So the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 was passed by Congress, which authorized the establishment of a new agency. But that isn't actually USAID. USAID is essentially a front for, like we said, for CIA. And there was a time where it was important to have USAID, and that was, when communism was a threat, right? There was a time where the domino theory was legitimate, the idea that more and more countries were going to fall to communism, that the influence of the Soviet Union was something that threatened the whole world. And so that was when USAID existed to help to influence other countries to prevent them from becoming communist by providing them with funding, providing them with help with infrastructure, and also there was the covert actions which CIA would do, which was trying to topple other governments. But it was important. But after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. Organizations like USAID and the like, they don't have the same goal anymore. There is no communism. There is not global communism in the way that it was when the Soviet Union existed. There's no effort of global communism. Now the effort for global communism comes from the UN. It comes from the NGOs that the US is actually involved with. It's not the same kind of communism. It probably would look something more like Chinese communism, where you've got markets and market communism or whatever, but it's still a top-down authoritarian government, and USAID doesn't need to do the same kind of things. And so if it's actually just turned into a money laundering operation, get rid of it. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's necessary the way that it used to be, and Doge is showing that
what does ultimately mean though? Let's say that the U.S. stops engaging in these international soft coup manipulations. You guys ever hear that story? I think it's called "Confessions of an Economic Hitman."
I haven't seen
it's a book, right?
Yeah. This is a while ago. He was saying that the U.S. strategy was basically first they go to you and they say, "Okay, we're gonna give you a bunch of money if you do what we want you to do." If the leader says no, they say, okay, well, then we're going to manipulate your system and we're going to throw you out of power. If that fails, then they send in the wet works. They go in and remove that person. And the examples they give is like Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. Assuming that's true, if USAID is dismantled to a great degree and the U.S. stops engaging in this, what does the world look like?
I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty pro-America. So, like, I do think that in the absence of the United States being the global hegemon and having the influence that it does, you end up with something like China, someone like China or possibly Russia. Russia has, like, if you list all the countries that have the most slaves, currently Russia is like number 5 or 6, right? It's a train wreck, and China's not a whole lot better. So, as much as like the U.S. has problems and there is human trafficking and stuff, that's not something that the United States openly is okay with, and there are other countries where that is still okay. The U.S. is the best country in the world still, even though we have our own problems. I'm not trying to say that the U.S. is perfect and that we're completely clean. When you're a government doing government things, you're going to do bad things to people sometimes. And that's not an excuse. That's just the reality because we live in a complex, dangerous world. But the idea of having China in that position or having Russia in that position is far worse. I mean,
well, what is the path that we're on that leads to that not being the case?
Of us not being the
no, like everything we're seeing right now with tariffs and the potential shuttering of USAID, does that lead to a China-dominated planet, a unipolar China Communist Party, or a U.S.-dominated?
I don't think so. I think the most likely way that we end up with the Chinese dominating or with Russia dominating is if we don't take care of our economy and we allow the unfunded liabilities, the mandatory spending to blow up the dollar. I think that's the most clear and present threat to the US.
What's crazy is that for, I don't know how long it's been, 50, maybe 40 years, the U.S. economy has been extracted. We've been giving away our jobs and industry to Mexico, to Canada, and to China.
Yeah.
And this has led to the threat of nuclear annihilation with a massive superpower that is China. That didn't have to be the case.
Well, and if you look at the numbers for median household income adjusted for inflation, we have totally plateaued. And in a lot of ways, we've gone back. When was it Nixon that finally got us closed the gold window?
Yep.
Yeah.
You could support a family off of one income. Good luck doing that now.
Well, so how does Trump make Americans have more babies?
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts on this.
Be my guest.
Look, I don't think it works just to pay people. But one thing that Elon brought up recently that I thought was creative was in the, I think it was Bill Clinton, he did a budget cutting bill, and essentially they offered federal employees $25,000 to retire early and quit. And that $25,000 opened up the doors for us to cut even more. So you could think about it in that terms where you give a super high baby bonus. I don't know if it'll work. I think we got to look at countries like
Texas.
Hungary that have tried a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah.
Married, 3 kids, no taxes.
I love that.
And if you get divorced, you lose it.
I agree with that. But what about like a friend of mine? He actually brought this up. What about like a new Homestead Act for families? We have all this federal land, like literally, I think millions and millions and millions of acres that are just taken up by the federal government just to preserve the lands. What if you gave anyone that signed a forgivable loan after 25 years, you pledge to have children, but you have to go out there and you have to build your own home, and it's forgiven after 25 years of marriage and being open to life? I think that's an interesting idea, and it's very American, right? Westward expansion. It would decenter the power structures of these big cities, get a lot of people moving out. People want a home. They want something that they can invest in. It's empowering to them.
After we conquer Canada and Greenland, we're gonna need to settle in these territories.
I know that started off as a joke, Tim, but I think we should actually consider conquering Canada. I mean, they need to be colonized.
I think that the one of the things that the federal government can do, and this might sound It doesn't matter. One of the things the federal government can do is stop focusing on LGBT issues. And the reason I say that is when the goal of the federal government is to center the marginalized. And so this is it actually goes beyond LGBT issues, but actually goes to more the impulse of everyone on the left or the left-leaning people. The federal government should be focusing on families, should be focusing on traditional families, should be focusing on men and women having babies. That's what continues your society. We need to have education that does not demonize the American, our history. I think the 1776 project or whatever it is, the 17...
They're bringing that back, by the way.
Yeah, which is great. That kind of stuff is what you should be teaching your children in schools. If you refuse to teach that kind of stuff, your school should lose any funding, right? Completely and totally. The federal government should not be paying for schools to teach children that the American people and American history is uniquely bad.
Or that think about how insane it is. You have the U.S. American government funding schools that are teaching the kids, not that America's bad, but that their United States of America government is corrupt and evil and intrinsically, what interest do you have besides destroying the country?
Yep.
Who mentioned Hungary?
I did. I love her.
did?
Oh, yeah, I think we both did.
I just
It was you.
looked it up, and it says Hungary's birth rate has been declining over recent years. This trend has been consistent since 2022. The
Probably why they're
fertility rate has
implementing-
shown a slight increase in recent years, reaching, well, it's still early, but 1.5 births per woman in 2025, a 0.45% increase from 2024. Despite these efforts, the birth rate has continued to fall. And that reached 1.5 births per woman in 2023, which is 11% lower than in 2022.
It's feminism.
I don't think that the government can do anything about it.
Well,
Honestly, because
they-
it's about people's hearts and their values, and the government can't do anything to foment a cultural change on that level.
They can do some things. The question is the level of impact it would have.
Yeah.
So I think that offering tax incentives and things like that, benefits will help, but not enough. You're right. There has to be a cultural shift. And I think largely through USAID, we've had this massive shift towards telling women that they should be girl bosses and they should live alone. And, it's wild to me that I think if you look at the voting patterns, you basically have families versus single people.
Yeah.
Like liberals are largely single women who have cats.
Yep.
That's not an insult. Cats are great. I got a cat too. I'm saying that's just what they are. And if you go to one of these people and you ask them about what would you want to invest in, they're going to say, but Trump putting tariffs is going to make my avocado toast cost more money. And then I'm saying, if we don't bring back American culture and industry, what will be left for our children? And they go, I don't care. I don't have any.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I think that the idea that like Mary said, it's not something that government can do, but government can push around the edges, right? So
It seems counterintuitive to make it more comfortable for people so that they feel comfortable with having children, because historically we can see people only really have children when they're uncomfortable and they're afraid for their lives.
No. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. It's actually more closely tied. People getting married and having kids is actually more closely tied to their outlook of the future. You had a baby boom after World War II. Why? Because Americans were coming back and they just got done with a bloody, terrible war, and they knew and felt that the future was good.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to point out. So I read this book years ago called What to Expect When No One's Expecting. And it was by Jonathan Last before he went nuts on this Trump derangement stuff. And he points out one very important thing. The population carries a lot of momentum. It's very tough to stop a baby boom or to slow it down, because what happens is you have a bunch of kids and then those kids just naturally have a bunch of kids. But at the same time, population decline is incredibly hard to stop. Once it starts to get in motion, for example, once your average woman who hasn't had a kid turns 35, well, her fertility drops by 50% when she hits her 30s. So it's incredibly difficult to have more kids. I will say this though, Mary, is in terms of what the government can and can't do to get people getting married and having kids again, there's a lot they can stop doing right now that would help at least stop the bleeding. And what I mean by that is like, why are we have 1.6 is our fertility rate right now, which is like, 0.6 under.
To be fair, liberals are at like 1.3 and conservatives are like 1.8.
Well, we got to get those numbers.
But
I know, but I'm just saying like liberals are doing worse.
What I meant when I said that is that you can just see when any country becomes wealthy.
Yeah.
They just stop having kids, and it just seems to be their preference.
That's a great point because it really is like the unsolved problem is that wealth creates a society that doesn't want to have kids. And the funny thing is, like, kids are like the physical manifestation of a hopeful society, right? Like, you don't have a lot of kids if you think tomorrow is going to be worse for your children. People don't, they just don't, they don't, if you think that, like, the world's going to end, and that's part of why liberals don't have kids nowadays, is because they think, oh, I don't want to bring kids into this world that's getting hotter and we're going to have a war. They're all nihilistic at the end of the day. And so they're like, well, I want to live for myself. Whereas people that have religion and have hope for the future, or at the very least hope in general, even if they don't have hope for human society, they're like, well, when we die, we all go to heaven, so it's okay to have kids. That's better than not having kids, because they believe that that's what they were told by God. They were instructed to go forth and multiply. But I do think that children are the physical manifestation of a hopeful society. And I think that without religion, you end up with a lot more nihilism and a lot of people that are just like, I don't want to have kids. I'm going to live for myself and live for today. How you solve that, I don't know. But with wealth, seems to come less religion or more. It's weird because it's not really like less religion. They just turned it to state religious, but like it's not the same kind of traditional religion. And then you have fewer people having kids because they don't have the same impulses. They think, oh, I'm going to live for me. So I don't know that I have the solution, but I do think that the government shouldn't be focusing on the margins. I think the government should be focusing on people that want to have families and want to have kids.
We were talking about this a little bit before the show because I was playing Like a Stone by Audioslave, which, like, to anybody with a brain is about a dude reading the Bible and then, like, he says, I regret all the things I'd done and I want to be in heaven and all that stuff. And the point I was bringing up is that culturally in this country, when we have these songs or movies that are very right wing in their I guess message, the right never cheered for it. It was just taken for granted. It was the way it was supposed to be. So Captain America, as a reference, I give quite a bit. The first Captain America movie, and it was like 2010 or whatever, is about a dude who's desperately trying to enlist to serve his country. The second movie is about a guy realizing the government was corrupt and overrun by fascists who had secretly taken over it for the whole time and been operating since World War II. And it's a very different message. People still enjoy these movies, but I look at it like, why don't conservatives, or why didn't they? I suppose it doesn't matter why they didn't, but they didn't say, hey, this is really, really great, make more of it. What ends up happening is the woke activists come in and complain, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you end up with 14 years or 10 years of wokeness until finally, it's not even necessarily conservatives, just regular people were like, we do not want this weird garbage.
That's a good point, Tim. Like, I do think conservatives and anyone on the right needs to do a better job of rewarding anyone that's doing the right thing and producing beautiful pro-America, pro-God, pro-family art. And as you were talking, it reminded me of the Chick-fil-A protests. I think it was around 2011, 2012. Their founder comes out and says they only respect, one man, one woman marriage. And the left did a whole backlash. All the LGBT groups started boycotting them. And conservatives rose to the challenge and they did a boycott. And it literally put Chick-fil-A even more on the map than it already was. It exploded their growth. And if you think about what would have happened if conservatives just went away and didn't go and do the boycott, didn't reward Chick-fil-A for...
Didn't Chick-fil-A ultimately cave to a lot of woke demands later on, though?
They did a little bit, but it was more on the tolerance end of things. But they never changed their position on gay marriage. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm talking myself out of this. Yeah, I mean, they did kind of.
Well, that's because you're right. Conservatives did this, but then in the late 2010s, they stopped.
Yeah,
it was. I guess just battered and beaten down. But now things are starting to turn around.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a major shift in the culture, but who knows? Well, let's do this. I'll jump to this story, which I painstakingly do. From People, Alicia Keys delivers powerful message at 2025 Grammys. DEI is not a threat; it's a gift. You know what I absolutely love about this is that you got this video, and I think it was like Billie Eilish. Was that who it was? Who was like sitting there going like, "Yeah, you go" or something. And I'm like, yo, you guys lost. Like the popular vote was for Donald Trump. It's clearly not working out, and they're doubling down at their weird cult fest.
DEI may not be a threat, but it's purely illegal.
It's a violation of civil rights law. Exactly
absolutely
right.
Illegal. It's absolutely illegal. And eventually, these companies that hire based on DEI quotas and stuff like that, they're going to find out that they're going to see people that are gonna, you're going to take them to court. I don't know if we're going to talk about it tonight, but there's someone suing the company, a company about hiring what's it called, the air traffic controllers. A guy, like there was like 1,000.
They were saying if you were mentally unwell.
Yeah, there's that, but there's also apparently there was like 1,000 people that were looked over that had some of the best scores on the test. One dude got like 100% on this 8-hour test. You have to score 85%, but they didn't hire him because he's a white guy. And there's multiple cases pending right now like that. And when that kind of if I remember correctly, it's been going since 2000, like 5 years. I'm not sure exactly, but the point is, once these actually come to light and you see that there's a lot of people that are suing or that have been passed over for important jobs, you're like, this kind of talk is going to be widely rejected. People are going to be like, no, this is not okay, because you're making the world worse. We've talked about a crisis of competence on this show multiple times because of hiring people that are not qualified because of their identity. Like that is happening, that has been happening. And granted, thankfully, there haven't been a lot of these things that have happened, a lot of accidents. But the more you do it, the more the possibility becomes a reality. The more frequently things are going to go wrong. And, air travel is very, very redundant. Like you have to have a lot of things go wrong to have an accident, especially one like this.
Well, the meme now is that Pete Buttigieg was holding this all together like Spider-Man in the train. And that as soon as he's out, like planes are bursting into flames and they're crashing. I'm like, it is kind of funny to me that we've been warning you about this for years. Yep. And then Trump's not even a week in and we see a bunch of disasters. You're like, Trump must have done it. And it's like, or we've been warning you this was going to happen. Trump has not had enough time to do anything related to any of this.
Well, did you see like the latest like disingenuous attacks from the Dems, like Schumer and Pelosi and all that? They're saying to have the president of the United States blame these tragedies on persons of color and minorities is absolutely tragic. Like, no. We're blaming it on the system that you created. Yep. That forces, or not forces, but where you actually choose people based on their identities, not on their qualifications. Yeah. And it's just more and more the same from these guys. They lost and they still didn't get the memo, or they're like refusing to accept the memo.
It's been 10 years of this stuff or longer. I think the first kind of inkling of this stuff was probably like when Barack Obama first got elected. So easily 10, probably 15 years of this stuff has been going on. And it's really, really ingrained now. And it's something that people have been complaining about and being called all the names in the world. If you said, oh, this is a bad policy, it's like, oh, you're a racist, sexist, bigot, blah, 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 all the isms and stuff like that. And now no one cares anymore. Everybody that's would be critical of this stuff, and they if someone on the left says, oh, well, you're only saying this because you're a racist, they're like, your magic words don't work.
Right. Transphobe.
Try to put your magic spells back in your pouch because none of it works anymore. I don't care about your mumbo jumbo. So, I'm telling you something that's true.
You're talking about air traffic controllers being hired for DEI reasons, right?
That was the specific issue that I was talking about.
That's like homicidal.
Yes.
And I'm just if I envision who I would think of as the ideal air traffic controller, he's like a kind of nerdy white dude who's like played video games since he was like 8 years old and has incredible hand-eye coordination and incredible focus.
There's always the Chad meme. I don't care. Whatever the job is, the ideal guy is the Chad meme. Just a big ripped guy, and he's sitting there and he's like, Turn left.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the qualifications that you have to.
You better be a gamer.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
And like back to the Grammys, this is just like a huge moment of catharsis for all of these people because like the wound of Trump winning is still so fresh for them. It was not just Alicia Keys, it was everyone who was making statements like this. I think one other celebrity dedicated, I think it was Shakira, dedicated her award to immigrants. Not really sure which immigrants she's talking about, and
Rabbit
said that they're
Indians.
they're seen and loved and everything. She's mothering them. And then Lady Gaga
think it was the carjacking
making a
immigrants.
statement about how trans people, I just want you to know you're not invisible or whatever. And it was just nonstop after that.
Nonsense.
Can you do that Shakira impression again? I think that was really good. That was
Wait,
really
what?
accurate. Can we just
It was almost a Kamala Harris impression.
We did it, Joe.
that was good.
I can't remember who tweeted it. It might have been Milo. Somebody was like, "I don't watch the Grammys because it's basically like the pre-show for the Diddy party or whatever."
No one watches it. They've been struggling for years, and no one even cares about these things anymore. You just see
clips
of it show up on your timeline.
The
I
only,
didn't even know what
Move
happened.
on
To be
with
honest,
your life.
the only positive thing I can say about the Grammys this year is the Grammys actually managed to give a Grammy to a good metal band. Usually they blow it
Which one?
to Gojira. So they're
yeah, but they gave
That wasn't-
Beyonce a country award.
yeah. Well, she wrote a country record.
Biggest DEI win maybe in history. Beyonce got best country album. Are you kidding me? Nobody liked or cared about Cowboy Carter, and it was cheeks. It was so bad.
Wait, what's cheeks? Is that like
bad.
ass?
Yeah, it was ass, and she got it because she was making a statement about how black people belong in country music. That was what they were framing it as. So it was Black History Month. We're just gonna give Beyonce the award because she's here.
No, I got it.
Participation trophy.
I'm gonna make the Hollywood Actors Award ceremony, and I'm gonna give it to me and Phil, and basically just when they give an award for country music and they're not the Country Music Awards, it's just meaningless. You know what I
She
mean?
won over Post Malone, who has made so much country music recently. He's really good at it. I mean,
He's
I kind
really
of like
good
him
at
more
it.
as a rapper, but
F1 Trillion's good.
aside from that, he lost to Beyonce, which is just a joke, and everyone knows it.
Well, look, I mean, Beyonce, the music, the Grammys are all about the music industry patting itself on the back, right? It's all. The people that are on the Grammy Council or whatever,
It's a small group.
Yeah, it's a small group of people. Tom Morello's
Get
on
bought
it.
off.
Yeah, and the
Oh yeah,
you
Jay-Z wrote a check.
when you end up the way that you get submitted is your label submits you, and then it's always who does your manager know? Does your manager know the right people? Can they grease the palms of the people that are on there, or at least are they going to take them to dinner? Are they going to
Submitted?
No.
Never?
Well, there's been times where our label submitted, but I've straight up said that if we ever got a grant, we would never get one because I'm not in with the people. But if we ever did end up with one, I would do the same thing that Randy from Lamb of God did. Randy from Lamb of God won a Grammy. Randy didn't go. I wouldn't go either. Randy took the Grammy nomination, the Grammy award. He auctioned it off and he gave the money to charity, and that is the exact correct
Or
thing to
even
do.
better, do what Kanye did. He just pissed on it.
Or
Fair enough.
he brought his wife naked to the Grammys.
That's
Yeah, he did that.
that's a thing.
Everyone's saying that he's controlling her and forcing her to do this. I find it incredibly easy to believe that this woman is debasing herself for money and clout. It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I mean,
I just assume she's into it.
Oh, and there were
people who are
kids
into
there,
it.
by the way. There were children present. You can even see in one of the videos, there were children present on the red carpet because there were all these Make-A-Wish kids there. It was insane. And that's a crime. I don't know how they're not in jail right now.
Honestly, what she did, it's for those that don't know, she was wearing completely see-through garment of some sort.
it was the most see. It was the most see-through
non-existent.
garment that
But
you
it's-
can imagine.
Yeah.
It's just one step past the line that the Grammys were already at. These
Oh
awards.
yeah, I'm not saying the Grammys are the pinnacle of human decency or
No, I'm just
anything,
saying that we've
but-
already seen nipples and stuff, and they just go but it's only a little bit, and they do things like that. She just was like, I'm going for it.
I mean, I don't think that Kanye could have gotten away with walking out there naked,
No.
but she did. And
Oh, so they got kicked out, though, right?
It's really disheartening because you can't get away with this once you have cultivated a mainly Christian fan base, or at least people who profess to be Christian, with this worship music that he was making as recently as 2023. And then now with his current behavior, you can either determine that he was putting on a front the whole time, or he has taken an extremely different path.
We're talking about Kanye?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I love him. I listen to all of his music. One of my only regrets is that I've never been to one of his shows. I've been to 100 other shows, but he's a bit unstable. I mean, I don't know if there's really any method to his madness. Like, he's all over the place. I think he's one of these like crazy artists that
A lot of people just wanted to take him at his word when he was talking about converting to Christianity and wanting to make music that isn't offensive and indecent. And then Carnival comes out and you see, okay, I guess you went back on that. And it's straight up blasphemous. There are blasphemous lyrics in that.
in the gospel album.
No, in Carnival, his recent album that was nominated, there's a line that's like he's calling himself Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah.
So
Well,
it doesn't get
Yeezus-
more unambiguous than that.
Well, he called himself Yeezus for. I mean, look, I think he's an unstable person, and also like he's obviously unstable. He was praising Hitler on Alex Jones. Like, I don't know. I just don't. I think he makes good music, and that's where it is with me and him.
Let's move on and get back into the world of boring politics. We have this from the New York Times. Top FBI agent in New York vows to dig in after removals at agency. It's not just him. We've got some posts. Let me see if I can, we got one from Jack Posobiec. Federal workers are actively stating they're declaring war on Trump, on the Trump admin from within the government. Look at this. To my fellow feds, especially veterans, and I'm just not going to read it. It's just it's long-winded, stupid. It's like they don't care about us and
P2025.
this goon and Project 2025. Then we got this from Elon Musk. R/FBI says OPSEC reminder use of fingerprinting on emails and notices, basically warning that Elon and his Doge team are using. There's this technique called coloring the water, where to prevent leaks or to track leaks, you send out slightly different information in every direction, and then whichever information leaks, you know who the leaker is. In this instance, they use fingerprinting in emails. So if you screen grab the email, they know exactly who it came from. It looks uniform, but there's something tiny about it you don't notice. Mm-hmm. So Elon Musk is saying, if you leak, you're fired.
Yes.
The idea that there would be no resistance is a silly one. Of course, they're going to resist. And now even James O'Keefe has this video out where they're basically saying they're going to defy the orders from Kristi Noem.
Absolutely. This is something that at least libertarian kind of minded people have had a sense of, because the libertarians have been, ineffective forever. But this administration is actually the most libertarian administration in probably 75 or longer years. This is the kind of stuff you can expect the government to do. These kind of like, oh, he's such a terrible person, and oh, they're going to put all these people out of business and are out of work, and et cetera, et cetera. That's the same thing you get anytime you try to cut in government at all. If you try to cut any program, the people that have made a living off of it, of course, are going to call you names. They're going to say that you're this bad person, et cetera. And if you're a president that is so polarizing with an opposition that is so sure that you're the worst person ever, they're going to do everything they can to cast everything you do as the worst. It's ridiculous because they're saying, oh, Donald Trump is a fascist and he's like Hitler. And it's like he's trying to make the government smaller. Fascists don't try to limit the scope and size of government. They want a government that's involved in almost every aspect of your life because, Mussolini said everything within the state, nothing outside of the state, right? And Mussolini is the quintessential fascist, aside from the Nazis, which were a whole other kind of fascism. But Mussolini really kind of wrote the book on fascism, and there was nothing that the Italian fascists were not involved with. There was any personal life was gone. The government had a stake in all of it. The idea that Donald Trump is a fascist when he's trying to cut things, trying to remove government from your daily life is ridiculous, but they have nothing, which is exactly why they're doubling down.
I wish that Trump were the person like they say he is. I always think about this. It makes me so sad that he's not the fascist dictator that they say he is.
But the irony shouldn't be lost on us, though. I mean, for the last, 8 years, we've had to listen to the left talk about how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The principles of democracy are under attack every single day from every direction from Trump and his team. And meanwhile, we have a democratically elected president who gets into office, who has a, 56% approval rating, who's doing all this. His approval rating's rising as he's doing his agenda. And now you have this deep state, this shadow government, let's call it, who's trying to thwart him every which way. Like, which is it? We all know. We all know it was never about democracy. What they really meant, what Elon said, if you change out democracy with bureaucracy, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. There's I just retweeted it, so it's at the top of my my Twitter feed if anyone's interested in looking. But there's a New York Times piece that was written today, and it says the Democrats are saying we have no coherent message. Democrats struggle to oppose Trump. More than 50 interviews with Democratic leaders reveal a party struggling to decide what it believes in, what issues to prioritize, and how to confront an aggressive right-wing administration. That's exactly what we want.
What if with this USAID purge, they're gonna fire a bunch of feds, FBI agents. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Basically, any FBI agent who was involved in J6 investigations is on the chopping block, including like leadership. Yeah. What if they take USAID and just start funding a bunch of conservative organizations the way that they were
to make up for it? I think that's more than justified. I don't want it.
100 years of populist right-wing rule in this country.
I don't know if you get that, but it would definitely make up for. I'll tell you this. So my dad was a one-term member of Congress. He got elected in 2010, and we killed it with fundraising. We raised $1.5 million. Our opponent raised, I think it was 2.1. That was like real money at the time. You look at what these congressional candidates are raising now. It's 3, 4, 5 million if you're a Democrat, right? And it's always been puzzling to me where the hell all this money's coming from. Like, what was the big change where all of a sudden Democrats are raising, mid 7 figures? It has to be this government stuff, and it had to have been led by Barack Obama. They got too close. I think the 2010 wave year really scared the bejesus out of the Democrats. They thought, holy cow, there's this populist backlash to all these Obama policies, and they started plotting and planning. Everything, Barack Obama got elected, and then everything started becoming super dysfunctional. It's like he exacerbated everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The argument is that with USAID, it was funding the Uniparty, which was Republicans and Democrats as well. I don't know. It's circuitous. I wouldn't call it conspiratorial because the money is traceable. You can actually see that, like, this organization received money from USAID and then donated money to these activist groups. It's all there. The intent is a question. But if the U.S. goes in, if like Elon and Rubio or whatever, they go in and say, no, we're just going to make sure that all that money goes to, like, Bible study or something like that. That could dramatically shift things in a way that's worse than just shutting it down. Right now, they shut it down. The deep state says, dang, we lose our funding. They reappropriate all that funding in the populist direction, and it's game over.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I kind of like it. Maybe we should petition that.
Well, Rubio's saying he doesn't want to shut it down.
I'm not sure what policies, you should be focusing that money on if we were to do that, right? Like
1776 curriculum in every public school.
I don't think that that's going to take that much money.
No, it's probably
like I think that the actual things that the Republicans or conservatives want the government to do probably don't take as much money as is being cleaned up. And again, this is just discretionary, right? So even if you took that excess money, did a couple things that conservatives liked, and threw the rest of it at mandatory spending, you don't do anything about the coming economic crisis.
No, you know what you do is you redirect the USAID funding to helping women afford pregnancies. You pay for every single pregnancy in the country as long as they're married. That's how you do it, and that would shift so much power back to. And Tim, I think we've talked about this on your show because we did this report years ago. It was like 2019. and we studied the impact that family structure has on voting behavior and ideology. If you're married and have kids, you're way more conservative. And if you come from a household of a married mom and dad that didn't get divorced, didn't, cohabitate, you are way more likely to be conservative than their never married peers.
Enforced monogamy.
They just incentivize monogamy.
No, Jordan Peterson got yelled at by the liberals for this. Enforced monogamy is just the sociological term for when a society has pressures on wanting you to be monogamous. So, like, back in the day, if you were a woman and you were not married, you were a spinster, and so there was a shame involved in it. Enforced monogamy was then taken to imply that Jordan Peterson was saying the government should force women to marry incels. That's not what he was saying. He was saying that a society
That's a punishment.
should have like its own guardrails. This is what people need to understand. That Mary, you made a really great point about how government can't really do much to change these things. You can't rely on the stroke of a pen. The moment you're writing things down to make them happen, you're already in trouble. Society needs to dictate its own rules. And we have a degenerate, immoral, amoral society right now.
Well, I think a lot of that's...
We're winning. We're winning. It's shifting.
We're starting to win, but a lot... we have this report that's coming out later this week. We analyzed all of the funding streams that the federal government's using to push gender ideology on our kids and throughout our entire culture. It is over $100 million at least, right? This is insane. It's like government is doing so much to cause dysfunction that if you were to just get the government to stop doing the programs that are causing dysfunction, I think you'd have a lot of healing that would naturally start happening.
I don't think we're winning. I don't think we're winning at all. People just look at the end of a battle and they look at Trump winning an election and they think that's the end of a war. And that's incredibly naive.
I don't know.
Short-sighted.
I don't think it's over. I hope people
It's
don't.
far from over.
I don't think people think it's
not
done
even
yet.
close to over. We're not winning. We're not winning the culture. We're not.
I disagree. The popular vote shows a cultural shift. It doesn't mean that we've won the culture, but we are winning. And then you look at was it Rachel Maddow's key demo average was 68,000? Like we have like just about that much watching live at one moment. And that was her like cap viewership in the demo. So I do think it's a big mistake of Trump and his team to start defending TikTok all of a sudden. That's going to flip on a dime in 2 seconds and start pushing Dylan Mulvaney all over again. But I think Trump wins. Facebook backs off censorship. YouTube does as well. Rumble's expanding. Just got $1 billion investment from Tether. There's tons of cultural victories, and we've been gaining. I think with Trump's victory, a popular vote win for the first time in 20 years, we are gaining ground.
But doesn't it signify that there's like a real shift in people and where they get their news from? I mean, I think that's the most hopeful thing is people really don't watch CNN or MSNBC anymore. They are going to Timcast and they're going to Rogan and they're going to all these other sources. It's becoming decentralized, which is a beautiful thing because it's one less tool that the state can use. And we're expected to believe that the FBI and the CIA and USAID, that they do regime change and operations in every other country except the United States.
Well,
it's garbage. Everyone knows that that's not true.
Let's jump to this next story. We got this one from the New York Post. Democrats' unfavorability rating reaches new 16-year high as party keeps licking its wounds following disastrous 2024. Phil had this post. We have no coherent message. Democrats struggle to oppose Trump. More than 50 interviews with Democratic leaders revealed a party struggling to decide what it believes in, what issues to prioritize, and how to confront an aggressive right-wing administration. I just want to make it simple for everybody. There is let's count. Just Tulsi Gabbard, she was a Democrat. RFK Jr., he was a Democrat. Donald Trump, he was a Democrat. Who else do we have? Basically, they're calling it an aggressive right-wing administration that's led largely by a bunch of moderates.
Yeah.
They don't understand that they are the extremist lunatics and they need to moderate. Instead, what did they do? They voted David Hogg as their vice chair. They've lost the plot.
Yeah. That's a great point. The fact that they made David Hogg the vice chair. We talked about this a little bit earlier. The DNC when they were doing the voting, they did a land acknowledgement. There were people were talking about what gender you were allowed to vote for. If I understand correctly, you were not allowed to vote for 2 men or 2 women. You had to vote for 1 man and 1 woman. You weren't allowed to vote.
What about 2 women?
I know I couldn't. I don't think you could do that either.
Oh.
I think you had to have like some kind of non-binary or something. I could have misheard.
You had to vote for 1 man and 1 woman.
Yeah, you couldn't vote for
Sounds like
2 men.
marriage to me.
I could have misheard because it sounded like the people that were actually reading the rules at the DNC convention were confused as well. So I might have misheard or might have misunderstood. But the point is, they're still doing the same things that turn people off. If they do this stuff and they have policies that are working, most people will be like, I don't care, whatever, right? Until your child is confronted with a man and, until your daughter is confronted in the bathroom with a man, for the most part, most people will be like, nah, it's not that big of a deal. And they're like, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't affect me. Until it becomes personal. But when they're doing this stuff and they're mismanaging the government, when they're doing this stuff and you have inflation, when they're doing this stuff and you have an economy that's not doing well, when they're doing this stuff and there are actual tangible problems, these things become important.
Like no water in your fire hydrants.
Like no water in your fire
I mean,
hydrants.
if I was Trump or if I was one of these billionaire conservative donors, I would be getting my team together and plotting and planning on how we can start to make California purple.
Do you listen to the All In podcast at all?
I do every now and then.
Yeah, I listen to it like every week.
It's good.
And those guys
That's
were
Mark Halperin and Sean Spicer.
No, that's two-way. Mark Halperin's new platform. The All In podcast is Chamath. I forget what his last name is.
Oh, yes,
Jason.
yeah.
One of the guys is now on Trump's team. He's the crypto and AI guy. David Sachs, yes. But these guys were all former Democrats, right? They were all Silicon Valley guys. And they're all like Chamath and Sachs had an actual legit fundraiser for Trump. They have all seen what the Democrats are doing. People like Mark Andreessen, who's also I think he was an early investor in PayPal. He was great. But these guys were all staunch Democrats, and they've seen the way that the government has been behaving and the way that the government has been stifling innovation and stifling new technologies.
After the RFK Jr. hearing, I was watching that, and this was last week, right? Because I'm like sitting in the couch, unable to talk or open my mouth, watching this hearing, and I just thought these people are evil. Mm-hmm. Like RFK Jr. is moderate on a lot of these issues. Yeah. If you go to any LA, if you go to like what's that neighborhood called? We got Electric Avenue or whatever. They all these hippy dippy leftists wearing their sundresses and like refusing modern medicine and doing their holistic crystal woo woo stuff. Those are Democrat voters, and they're being told they're stupid and they're wrong. When RFK Jr., who's not even as far as them, is saying we should have more rigorous science on vaccines. They go, oh, you're a crazy person. I saw so many tweets from people being like, that's it, I'm done. I can't believe the Democrats would say something like this. I'm disgusted. Mm-hmm. There are Democrats who are wokish, who are liberal, who hate Trump, and very much say Big Pharma's screwing us over.
Yes.
And then they go to RFK and they attack him, and tons of other Democrat voters are just like, I'm out.
The MAHA movement is like the most beautiful new addition to the MAGA movement. I mean, it is the most popular aspect that they've added on, and it's so copacetic.
Yeah.
Because it flows with all of the opposition to the trans stuff. It's beautiful. Republicans, and I'm telling you, it's not the Democrats that are going to kill RFK Jr.'s nomination. It's Republicans. And those Republicans better watch out, because I'm telling you, there's so many of these moms that are heavily involved in the Republican primaries. Here's looking at you, Bill Cassidy. You don't want to mess around with these people. You're out if you kill this nomination. He's the most popular. Remember the Turning Point rally that they had where they announced that he was endorsing Trump? That was a huge gain of momentum for us.
Yep.
This is the Kennedys making right for all of the Catholics that they misled into the Democratic Party, right? That's what this is. It's beautiful.
What are they worried RFK is going to do?
He's going to screw over Big Pharma.
And all of these people who are paid by Big Pharma are obviously...
Even Bernie... So Bernie Sanders got so mad about this because RFK pointed out he's the largest recipient of Big Pharma dollars. And he goes, not from CEOs, just from the people who work there. It's like, okay, dude.
Unreal.
Who are all making so much. It's not like, he's acting like these are like blue collar job or workers at Big Pharma that are cutting him paychecks. No, these are like people that are making high 6 figures, 7-figure salaries.
It doesn't even matter. The point is, Bernie, I got a question. How come so many people who work for Big Pharma want to give you money, Bernie? Honest question. Could it be that under your policies of getting rid of the insurance companies and giving single payer, they're going to go on government contracts that'll never break? Could it be that they're going to essentially start functioning like USAID, where the government just writes them a $20 billion check? They can pay themselves because they're private entities getting government money forever, and they'll never have competition ever again because the government's going to give them infinite cash? Maybe that's why the people who work there are like, I want to donate to this guy. And he's the #1 recipient. And he was like, no, not from the CEOs.
Yeah, like
And it was like, it was only 1.5 million out of 200 million.
the fact that it didn't come from the CEOs doesn't change the fact that he got all that money from people in pharma. Like, you don't have to be a CEO.
This is what the game the Democrats try to play, because they know that the average person doesn't follow the news. They go like, that Donald Trump is increasing your taxes, and you're like, how? With the tariffs. What does that mean? And Democrats go, tariffs are a tax on you. And it's like, okay, well, that's not necessarily true. Taxes are going to be on the people importing, and the assumption is they'll raise the cost of the price of the product to cover the cost of the tariffs. However, because of market forces in the United States, that may not actually be true.
Yep.
If there's 2 coffees and one comes from Canada and one comes from the United States, and there's a 25% tariff, that means that $10 bag of coffee in Canada is now $12.50. So the company says, to absorb the cost of the tariff, we're going to raise the price at $12.50. Good luck. The American coffee is still $10. Mm-hmm. So you can raise the price. What's going to happen? The company is going to say, if we raise the price, we will not be competitive in the marketplace. So we're going to eat it. So our margins are going to go down. And if they can't afford it, they might not even sell to the United States anymore. It's not a guarantee they're going to raise taxes on you. But Democrats are lying, saying all of those taxes will be on you. No, that's the game they play. They use assumptive language to trick you into thinking the wrong thing.
Well, how about the slow sucking sound that took all of our manufacturing jobs away over the last 30 years? I mean, there are other costs besides. I'm willing to pay a little bit more for my coffee or my tables or my clothing if it means my neighbors have jobs still, and that they aren't humiliated and told by Joe Biden that they need to learn how to code after getting kicked out of their coal mine.
Well, it's funny because we've talked about this forever. Like I've before the election, I'm ranting on free trade and I'm talking about how our jobs have been extracted 4 years ago, longer. I'm talking about how Trump threatens a tariff on Mexico and the auto manufacturers come back to Michigan. Biden gets in and they rip it off and they go back to Mexico. It was crazy, the back and forth they were doing. We've talked about how we as Americans are willing to pay more for American-made products because it's better for our culture, our economy, and our children's future. And I made the point, we launched Booney's HQ well before the election. Booney's HQ skateboards are made in America. We sell them at a cheaper price. We give a better royalty to our pro riders. We make profit. And we were told we would make an additional like $10 per board if we sold Chinese-made boards. I said, no, we want to invest in America. Donald Trump coming in and threatening tariffs. Now they're going, I thought you guys wanted cheaper eggs. And I'm like, well, buy chickens. Like, I am deeply concerned about the jobs in this country being extracted, and I am personally willing to pay more for American. That's always been the case. A great example is Mammoth Nation and Public Square. As if Trump supporters and MAGA and populists were not actively building industries around supporting American-made products.
Mm-hmm. No, it's obvious. Like, they just wanted to keep their gravy train running. Their campaign, the Democrats' campaigns, are all funded by the major corporations that don't want to have to worry about restructuring or changing anything in their business. They just want the profits to keep coming through. The Democrats are now both the party of big corporations and big government. You're starting to see a bit of a shift from big corporations. They're starting to come back to the Republican side after Trump won, but I don't know how long that's going to last, actually.
I mean, I don't know how long it's going to last either.
Man, this as the joke goes, this past week was a hell of a year. Trump's. So I can pull up his approval rating right here. Trump's approval rating from RCP aggregate plus 4.6. If we go back to the first few days of his presidency, he was up like 13 or whatever, up 8. Still, we expected to normalize a little bit, but he's never been above water.
No, that's right.
And so clearly, in terms of what the American people want, they're liking what they're seeing.
I like the fact that, I like the fact that he's got high approval ratings, but to be honest with you, the substance of what he's doing, all of these executive orders, all the things that Doge is doing, that's the real victory. Even if people, started to get a little weak in the knees because it's big changes too fast for them or a little faster than they're comfortable with, I feel like that's okay because these changes are what he actually did run on, and these are the things that are necessary. Making the government smaller and more efficient, making the fact that, or making sure that the bureaucracy has there's a limit to the bureaucracy's ability to stymie the will of the American people. The bureaucracy passing rules, it has the same effect as Congress passing laws, and that's not supposed to be how legislation works in the United States, right? The executive branch has the ability to implement things, and so they're going to make some rules, but they shouldn't be making more rules than the American people can deal with. I think it's like 3 felonies a day is what the average person commits accidentally. So and really that puts everyone in a position where at any point the government might stick their nose into your life and say, hey, you have a massive problem now because we want to make your life a problem.
Well, that's why I love Trump talking about, look, I don't know how feasible this is, okay? I'm not an economist, but I love Trump talking about eliminating the income tax and going to an all tariff-based system, because right now, with all of us having to pay an income tax, every single one of us is at the whims of the federal government and the IRS and whether or not they decide to go after us. But if you I think the onus on federal revenues and taxes should be on major corporations and businesses that do business overseas. They've already got the accounting firms, they've got the best tax lawyers, but everyday people like you and I, we can't afford these guys. And so basically we have a tax code that can be weaponized against us at any point in time for simply missing a few things on our tax returns.
Do you think a consumption tax is a better option?
I don't know. I really don't know. I've seen proposals for a gross receipts tax on corporations. It's like a super low flat tax that corporations have to pay on their gross receipts. I just think the tax code, whatever the taxes are, it should be the lowest possible rate with the widest possible base.
Because tariffs only, no income tax.
Well, no, I'm not talking. I'm thinking I would love to get rid of the income tax too. But the idea, like, if there was like a
VAT,
if there was I'm not sure if a value added tax is the same thing that I'm thinking of. Like, essentially a federal sales tax or a federal. I mean, the reason it's a consumption tax is just on everything, right? Mm-hmm. And if you had 1% tax on every dollar that was spent, right? That would, I don't know exactly what it would generate, but it would generate a considerable amount of money because our GDP is $27 trillion or something.
$1 on what?
So 1% on
1%
on every dollar spent.
On every dollar.
So it's like, a penny on every dollar.
Right.
But our GDP is 27 trillion, right? Annually or something like that.
So that would be 270 billion in additional revenues?
Yeah, something like that. And it wouldn't fund the whole government, but if you actually shrink the government considerably and have a some kind of something like that. And I don't know the number. I don't know if it's 1% or 2% or whatever. But the point being, instead of taxing people's income and taxing the people that go out and work, tax what's spent. So that way, if you decide you're not going to spend money, you're going to save your money. Mm-hmm. You're not paying the tax on your income. You're paying the tax only when you're actually engaging in economic activity. And I don't know the percentage or whatever, but it to me it seems like that would be a better system than taxing people for going out and creating work or working and having an income.
So like a lot of people just, we live our lives. We don't really think about how the tax code impacts our lives. It does in so many different ways.
Huge.
So I like where you're going with this. What I would want to do is have this, if I was going to do this, have a national consumption tax, but then give a rebate for families. You get X amount of dollars for a rebate on this for every kid you have, or however whatever it is.
Yep.
But you reorient the entire country, the entire economy around the family.
Yep.
I think doing it around individuals is just it's too individualistic.
I mean, like I said earlier today, I like the idea of focusing government policy on promoting families as opposed to focusing government policy on. And this sounds horrible, but and I understand that there are people that need help and stuff like that. But the idea that we incentivize women having children outside of wedlock is bad. Mm-hmm. We need to stop doing that. We need to stop incentivizing people to have multiple children. And you hear the stories and the anecdotes. Oh, I don't want to go and make more money because I'll lose this benefit from the government, and I don't want to go and try and get another job, or if me and my baby daddy get married, then we're going to lose this and we're going to lose that. Those kind of things incentivize single motherhood. They incentivize people to not become families and not start families. So there should be policies that incentivize families and incentivize normal, traditional male and female families. Stop focusing on the margins. Stop trying to center the margins. Stop trying to incentivize LGBT people to have whatever kind of, polyamorous lifestyle they want.
There's no benefit to society from that.
There's no benefit to that.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. It is not. And to be honest with you, all it does is make society worse.
When
you
Trump signed the executive order to bring all the federal employees back to working in the office instead of remote work, a lot of people actually said that decision was anti-family, because the women who were working for the federal government from home were no longer able to work from home. And people were like, okay, but we're paying, as taxpayers, we're paying for them to basically do nothing all day. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem fair. And they're like, no, but you're incentivizing them to stay home with their children. That's a good thing.
I think that it's leftists lying. I think it's leftists lying about it.
They lie about everything.
But I'm telling you, right-wing, conservative people who are saying this is a bad thing to force federal employees back into the office because the women who work for the federal government are no longer going to be able to stay home with their kids while they work this laptop job or whatever.
I'm pretty sure if you're doing telework, you're required, at least my organization requires it. We're small. But if you are working from home for this type of stuff, you have to have childcare arranged. So they should not actually be home with their kids.
They're slipping under the radar, and people, conservatives were saying you should just let them though.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
You should just let them pretend to work while they take care of their kids, and then we will pay for it through our taxes.
Are they married? Ostensibly,
the one that they were referring to was
okay. I would be in favor of firing them and coming up with a program for married couples to supplement the income that they would have, and then actually getting rid of that job. Or because once their kids are old enough, they can not have that whatever program it is anymore. So
the example I was reading about was that she did have the availability for subsidized childcare through her federal government job, but that she made too much money to qualify for it. Okay, so I didn't understand the argument there.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure the argument there either, but I mean, I think that it is.
Moms should just have as many fake email jobs as possible. As long as they don't work for the federal government, I would like for them to go steal money from a corporation instead of me.
Well, I mean, I think that if you're working for the federal government, you should have to actually go to work. You should actually have to work for the government. You should have to do your job.
Where were all these people? Are they even living in DC, or are they just all over the country?
I don't have any idea, but it's bad that we got to this point, right? COVID is what made this happen. And we should have gone back to normal as soon as we could have after COVID. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we should go back to normal, because if there are people that got onto this program while COVID was going on, if they didn't end it, then more people were getting onto these programs, and it becomes a program that doesn't go away. It'll never end. There will always be people that are working remotely that are saying, well, I can just sign up for this because I have a kid, or I want to have a kid, so I'm going to work remote, and I'm going to make $100,000 or $200,000 a year working remotely, and I'm actually only going to work about 30 hours a week for the federal government. I'm going to work on it's going to be the taxpayer dime or whatever. So whereas people may be making that argument, I honestly find it uncompelling.
It's like luxury welfare.
Yeah, it's like, look, it's bad that you're in this position, but it has to end. We have to stop these things. We can't have a system where people are working remotely and not going to work.
All the competent, self-governing conscientious people out there are saying, no, like as soon as I started working remotely from home, I got so much more done. And I don't really even disbelieve what they're saying, but most people, the vast majority of people, do need to be supervised in order to get anything done.
Yes, and honestly, I imagine that people that that are that that good at getting working
at that point,
remotely
just
or
own
whatever.
your own business.
Exactly what I was gonna say. Like they probably would be successful
If
at
you
whatever
ever
they
did,
do.
you wouldn't want your employees to work from home.
Yeah, it's true, because I mean it does seem to me that the majority of people that work from home are not the extremely go get 'em kind of people. They are people that are doing their best to kind of skate by, and that's not everybody, of course,
People
but
who say like, I smoke pot all day and I'm the most productive person.
I'm not
I know."
addicted.
yeah,
And I'm not addicted.
And either way, I don't want the people that work for the federal government doing that. I want people that work for the federal government to be like, to be kind of like ridden by their boss, being like, yo, are you getting this done? Are you getting this done? I like the idea that as much as, you're probably not going to get this in the federal government, but I like the idea that when Musk was going around to people at Twitter saying, what did you get done this week? What did you get done this week? What did you get done this week? Like, there should be a goal of being productive, especially in government. If you are in government and you have a job to do, there should be someone walking around saying, what did you get done this week?
Look,
what did you get done this week?
Elon Musk and Vivek got a lot of flack when they were saying a couple months ago that Americans are lazy. And that was their excuse for hiring non-American labor. Well, I will say this. Americans are lazy, but we have to hire American and build up our culture and infrastructure to reverse this cultural track. We can't function this way. But man, I got to tell you, I talked to a lot of people who own businesses, and the conversations are, I don't know if it's always been this way, but a large majority of the people who come in for work do not want to work. Yeah. Elon Musk goes in and says, what did you get done this week? Because I bet 90% did nothing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are times where there are people that I've hired for, when we're on tour, and there are people that are like, they get up in the morning and they're smiling and they are, like, okay, let's go. And it's like, it's raining and they're just like, okay, well, let's get this done. Or it's whatever the weather is outside and they're like, oh, let's get this done. And then there are people that get up and no matter what the situation is, they just look miserable. The people that look miserable, I don't hire a second time. I'm not looking to get that kind of person on the crew again. When it's people that are like, yo, I'm going to get this done. Let's go get this. Let's get the push on. Let's get the gear out. Let's crack that trailer. Let's go. Those are the people that I'm like, that dude should be hired again. And if people call me and they say, hey, you worked with this guy, right? And what was he like? Like, I'm not helping someone that was like dragging ass and acting like it was a chore to get out of bed. Because to be honest with you, like there are times where if you're on a crew, there are times where it's hard work, but for the most part, it is a pretty cool job. Mm-hmm. Like you get up at 10, 11, you get off the bus, you go and you crack the trailer, you push the stuff to stage, each person sets up their stuff. And then once 3 o'clock rolls around, you got from 3 o'clock until whatever time the band goes on to kind of, do your own thing, and you can play video games or whatever. Then we play and you got to be busy for however long our set is, an hour or whatever. We get done, you got to pack the stuff up and throw it in the bus. Most nights you're done before the show's over, unless we're headlining. If we're headlining, it's a little more work, but even still, it's an all right gig, So it's like, and you chose to do this job. That's the at the end of the day, that's the thing. You chose to do this. Like, we didn't twist your arm to get you to come out on tour with us. It's like, you're here, and if you're a bum out, then you're making it worse for everybody on the bus. We got to live with you, and you're all bummed out. Like, I don't want that. And it's like that a lot of times. So it's really hard to find people that are actually going to do the job and do the job well and actually going to seem like, okay, cool, man, I'm here to do the job. If you're not here to do the job, it's real obvious real quick. And it's like, all right, I
don't see nearly as many of these videos anymore, but these a day in the life of a Google employee or whatever. And they're usually made by girls my age who are recent college grads or something. And I don't see these videos as much anymore, but they definitely radicalize some people to see these luxurious laptop jobs where you do like a meeting and then you get coffee and then maybe you have another meeting and then
And you have
coffee.
like afternoon drinks.
Yeah, and then you go for drinks after work or whatever.
Do you think that
And,
those
like,
are PR departments doing that, or do you
it could have definitely been like an effort by the company to get more people, get more like candidates to apply, but I don't doubt that some of those videos were more realistic to the picture of what it looks like for an employee.
I can confirm they're real.
And I just look back at these videos that were made by Twitter employees, you know, before it was X, and I just laugh and laugh because they're not there anymore.
I've been invited to Google's office like 10 years ago. Maybe not 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years ago. I used to go to Google's office all the time. Maybe like, I don't know, once a month, if that. And they were Google and YouTube. YouTube was at it's that Marketplace in New York. Man, I haven't lived there in so long. But Livestream headquarters were there, right next to that Google HQ, right by that market, and then YouTube was like a block away. Man, I'd get invited to the Google office, and people are just sitting in like, I don't know how to describe it, fake little diner tables. They just get up and they go walk to the cafeteria where there's tons of free food and drink, and it's exactly like what you see in those videos.
Well, George Gilder, he wrote a book with us on monetary policy, but he's like this prophet from Silicon Valley. He wrote this original book called Men in Marriage in like the 80s. And then in the 90s, he wrote this book called Life After Television. But in the book that he wrote for us, it's called The Scandal of Money. And it's a good read. And it really helped me understand the purpose of monetary policy. But he brought up the fact that there were way more mergers and acquisitions coming out of Silicon Valley than IPOs. And he detailed how Google, their entire existence was essentially buying up all their competitors and giving them paper clips to play with. Like they suck up all the guys that are going to disrupt things really, and they buy them out, and then there's no real innovation. There's no real disruption in the market anymore.
I read a story about a guy who had an office job, and he said that his company got bought out, and he's like, I guess they didn't realize that I was still in one of their satellite offices, and so he would just show up every day, but nobody was there. It was empty. People stopped emailing him, but he kept getting paid. So he just kept showing up, and then he had nothing to do because he was like, I have no boss. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm here as I'm contracted to do, and he'd play video games all day. And part of me wonders if just we as a country have become extremely inefficient, lazy, and these corporations, all of them are largely legally automated through HR and stuff. So like, it's like in Office Space when that dude kept showing up to work.
Yeah.
The stapler guy.
And he's like, he stopped getting paid, but he keeps showing up anyway.
I think there's a difference between, office jobs like that and then like the kind of tech bro, Silicon Valley jobs. My ex used to work for Palantir and in DC. And like we would go to, I think it was, anyway, I went to the office with her and like, they had like, it was all like, there were like rooms for people to sleep in. They had like a stocked pantry, and by stocked I mean there was booze and all the food you could imagine. They had like catering every day, and they had like this big old Lego Death Star hanging up, and all the rooms were named after like dudes from Top Gun, and like they had like it was literally like if nerds had unlimited money. And they were just like, do what you want.
Not like that. It's
well, I mean,
just
yeah,
that.
it's exactly what it was.
They want you to live there or something?
But because they were working on like defense contract stuff. If there was like something where they had to be there overnight, there were like beds and bunks and stuff like that. Because if you had like an emergency and they needed you, they might be like, you have to stay here until this national emergency is over. But the point is like, I think that's a significant difference between like the stuff that goes on in Silicon Valley and the way that, because you see videos of Google and how they have like, the meditation rooms and the stress balls and they bring puppies in and all the stuff that they do at those companies. And that's real different than what you see like in Office Space or whatever kind of like call center. That's a whole different animal,
We're going to go to Super Chat, so if you haven't already, my friends, would you kindly smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, and become a member over at timcast.com, the Green Room, uncensored show. We are now increasing that members' content. We were bringing it back Don't even know why it stopped, but the Green Room show is back. So basically, when the guests show up, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes conversation. And Mary and Terry had a great conversation about OnlyFans, surrogacy. That'll be up at some point soon. And then we have Inspiring Philosophy up the other day. Last week, he was talking about Jordan Peterson, Islam, and a bunch of things. And then while recording, the plane crashed in Philly. Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. But as a member, you get access to the Discord server. That members-only Timcast show is coming up in about 20 minutes, where you as members can call in and talk to us. Plus, we are working on some documentaries. We got a lot of stuff in the works. It's going to be great. Let's grab your super chats and see what is up. All right. Mike C says, we got Tim Pool gets married before GTA 6. Congrats. Yep. That's true. Tony Nagy says, congratulations, Tim. Remember, rule number 1, she's always right. You're golden then. Long life. Haha.
Happy wife, happy life.
That's right. Someone else super chatted that too.
What do you make of that?
Happy wife, happy life?
This phrase that goes around. Do you think it's correct? It's misinterpreted?
I think it's like tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you don't want to be bad to your wife, you know? You want to be good. Have her be happy. That's it, you know?
A lot of people just interpret it to mean like you should just simp for your wife and do everything she tells you and be a lapdog.
Nah.
That's not what.
I think that's intentional misinterpretation, though.
I think, Terry, when did you meet your wife? How old were you?
I was 20. I hadn't turned. So I met her in 2007 at CPAC in DC. We were volunteering for.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? We were volunteering for Sam Brownback, who was a senator from Kansas, running for president. And then we started dating on the campaign trail out in Iowa. And look, I'll say this. I think that's what it's meant. Like, when people say it today, it really is more like a just shut up and just do whatever your wife says. But there is some wisdom in like dying to yourself to support your wife, right? Like, and sometimes that means disagreeing with her and protecting her from a mistake she's about to make or I don't know. I think your life's a lot better if your wife's happy.
Let's take it to its logical position. If your wife is like, I want to jump off this bridge, and you are like, well, I'm not gonna.
Whatever makes you happy, sweetie.
Yeah. Well, she's clearly not gonna be happy for much longer.
Right.
So part of what makes a person happy is understanding the balance of short-term and long-term satisfaction. Yeah. The problem we have with liberals in this country is that they're all short-term.
Yes.
They want to party, do drugs. They don't want to work. You need a balance. Yep. We have 2 weeks of vacation because sometimes you want to go skiing, you know, or whatever. You want to go to Wisconsin Dells if you live in Chicago, or Vegas. There you go. Everybody likes Vegas. But you go for 2 weeks. You lose some money. You spend a bunch of money on stuff you don't get back, but it's that short-term fun. But most of the year is spent preparing for that long term. So a happy wife is kept happy when you plan for the future. You do what you got to do, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I agree.
That means disagreeing sometimes. Yep. That means being stern and responsible. That means doing your duty, and it also means being stern if your wife is not doing her duty as well.
Well, it means doing things even if she didn't ask, right? Like doing the dishes, cleaning her room when she, moms.
Well, if you're a liberal, it's more about hiring Consuelo to do your dishes.
Otherwise, if you for all these people, who's going to clean your toilets? Right. That Meghan McCain line, that's wonderful.
Was that Meghan McCain?
Oh, no.
No, that was Osborne.
No, Kelly.
Kelly Osborne. Yeah. Sorry, got them mixed up.
You're like,
Meghan McCain's actually great. I have no issue with her.
No, that mixing them up was probably more offensive.
Yeah, that's probably. Oh man, I'm in deep.
We're sorry, Meghan.
All right, let's grab some more. What do we have? The Oracle says the Dems are currently trying to break into USAID offices, and they don't have high enough clearances. LOL.
Did you see Trump banned Brennan from ever going into any federal buildings? And I think Bolton.
And yep.
Bolton.
I laughed so hard when I saw that, and I was like, Elad most deeply impacted. Sorry, Elad. He loves Bolton. All right. Captain John Rackham says, my boss's wife passed away this weekend. I've known her for 10 years. She was a beautiful, wonderful person, and she will be missed. Rip Victoria. Sorry to hear it, man. Sad to hear it. Okay, let's go. Quantum Strange Cork says, Tim, congrats to you and Allison. You can never, ever win another argument again. Seriously, congrats. See, that's like the weird thing. I think like I was already referring to Allison as my wife to anybody who asked. That's like, there's no intention to be with anybody else. Like, we're here for each other. And that's why when we got married, we were like, well, let's do the ceremony when we have time. but we'll go to the courthouse and we'll get it legal. And it's largely just about protections and the legal protections and all that stuff. But, you know, our commitment to each other was already there. I do think that when your missions are aligned, you don't have to worry about these tropes and these claims and like sim for your wife or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. I don't really have to worry about it because like both Allison and I don't like it if there's garbage or if work isn't getting done. Like we there doesn't have to be an argument about it.
Look, I'm telling you, like the Bible is full of wisdom, and there's all these passages about how valuable a good wife is. And it really, like if you have a good wife, just the peace of mind knowing that you're fully aligned on things. She's never going to stab your back. It's literally like having a guaranteed best friend if you really do marriage right.
You know what, man, I tell you, I talk about this hypothetical quite a bit when Chelsea Handler was bragging about how she wakes up at 6 a.m., does drugs and masturbates or whatever, and she has no kids and she's excited. And I'm like, you're not going to be excited when you're in the hospital by yourself.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in the hospital alone by yourself? Miserable.
It's terrible.
Miserable experience. I had a kidney stone in 2014. I had to go to the hospital for a couple days. Like they had me on all these drugs, and I've like, what do I do? And I was like, this is just life. Be a man. And this is 11 years ago. So I'm like in my late 20s, and I'm just like, there's no one here to make sure. I'm like, at first we didn't know. I didn't know if it was appendicitis or what was going on. So I'm being admitted to the ER, being like, well, if I die, nobody knows. That's just it. A week from now, this was in between. I was leaving Vice and going to Fusion. A week from now, they're going to call my phone, get no answer, and shrug.
Never think about it again.
Yeah.
So,
my parents, look, I'm an adult man, so I call my parents periodically, but not enough to where
they would notice.
If like something bad happened, and I'm like, no, you don't want to live in that experience. Like there's a reason why we have families, and there's a reason why we have families when we're younger. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. has stopped doing that. I mean, I'm old to be having a family. Like we've got problems we got to fix. But I tell you, Chelsea, one of the most terrifying experiences is going to be when you're admitted to the hospital and they're like, is there someone we can call? And you're like, no.
So I'm the Elsa 10 kids, right? I'm one of these weird Catholic families, but my dad got diagnosed with cancer in 2020, and they gave him like 3 months to live. He ended up living another year, but I'm telling you what, like he died at home on his own bed with me and my 9 siblings and my mother at his bedside, thanking God out loud for him, praying for him. Like, death is miserable. It is horrific. But, like, that's as happy of a death as you can possibly get. You know, like all the 10 like kids that you helped raise, all thanking God out loud for you.
Have you seen Interstellar?
Yes.
The ending of Interstellar, when Matthew McConaughey meets his daughter, who's now older than him because of time dilation or whatever, and she's like, no dad should watch your daughter die. I have a family, and there's like 30 people in the room with her kids and all their kids. And I'm like, I'm telling you, man, anybody who's been in the hospital by themselves, you know, they're like, you don't want to go that route, you know. You want to have people that we're social beings.
Were you in the hospital during COVID?
No.
Okay. That was a whole other.
Nope. We were in at the castle at the time, and I was surrounded by friends and family. I was with Allison, of course, and then we got the magic medical treatment of monoclonal antibodies, which seemingly cured me overnight. It was nuts. It was amazing, and I you know, being alone in a hospital on your deathbed is probably that's hell.
But that's what people were forced to do during the lockdowns.
Oh, I know.
And
That's absolutely
why
psychotic.
Fauci needs a security detail.
And there's never been a freaking apology. You know what I mean? Like, no one ever apologized. No one's ever owned it. No one's gone to jail over it. It's terrible.
Kenneth Hart says, hey, Tim, don't take this the wrong way, but there was no drop in quality when you took time off. It was like hearing a band you like cover a song you like. You should do it more often with other folks like Seamus. Solid week fill. Indeed. Solid week fill.
Thank you much.
Seamus did fill in a week last year, and I heard it went smashing. It was swimmingly. And then Phil filled in last week. The only issue we're trying to figure out is like the morning show is not the same. Because it's one thing to have like a group conversation. It's another thing my morning show is just like an hour and a half of me monologuing. And so I don't know how to do that. So like even right now, my mouth hurts. But it is what it is. It's not as bad as it was last week. Last week, I couldn't eat anything. I was on what I call the Jocko diet. That was where the only thing I had was a Jocko protein shake, and I was grimacing in pain as I was drinking it, like, "Ugh." But that kept me alive, and I lost 3 pounds.
Skinny.
It's good stuff.
There you go.
The
it
protein,
hurts too much to eat diet.
Yeah, protein shakes are good. I mean, like that's what like Ensure is essentially. Those things that they tell for seniors and stuff. I mean, I drink a boatload of like protein shakes myself. Do you really?
Yeah, I did. I got a bunch of those.
Really?
It's just easier than eating if you don't have enough time. Yeah.
Why do I feel like you have enough time and you just don't feel like cooking?
I'm getting home at like midnight tonight.
Fair enough.
Times like these.
Times like these.
Well, it was Brian Johnson. You know who he is? That guy's going to live forever.
Yes.
He says don't eat within 2 hours before going to sleep.
Really?
Yeah.
He says a lot of things.
Yeah, he said have olive oil.
He's a vegan. Why do we listen to any of his opinions about health?
Because he's spending $1 million to get his blood
That
tested
literally
every
just
day.
means he's crazy. that means nothing.
Touche.
Like harvesting his son's blood.
That's true.
Weirdo.
Yeah. The olive oil thing's interesting, though. He said that a teaspoon of olive oil with every meal is like one of the most effective things you can do for anti-aging. And I was like, but olive oil is delicious. I could.
I'm already doing that.
I know. Yeah, that's great. All right, what do we got? Jeff Rock says, not all Canadians are like that, but all Canadians don't want to be a part of the USA. We also have seen a rise of white supremacists. In Canada? Oh, what are you doing wrong?
Sounds like you have a white supremacist government that needs to be overthrown.
We can help with that.
Hey,
We got this
you
thing
know-
called USAID. Basilisk says, hey, I'm an air traffic controller, and I can say that maybe DEI affects us in the management hiring, but as controllers, we have a staffing problem. When I got hired, there were 17K. Now there's around 12K. Wow.
Yeah, I thought that it was a problem with getting enough people to be hired.
Wasn't in the Potomac crash? Wasn't it like one guy was at 2 stations?
Yeah, they had someone that was running the. It's supposed to be one person for airplanes and one for helicopters, and there was one person running both of them.
Have you seen the new footage of that crash though? That chopper flew right in that plane.
Yep.
Like it was like the scene from Austin Powers where the steamroller's coming and the guy's 200 feet away going, no!
Yeah.
And then just slowly coming.
Yeah.
Rough.
I mean, I'm kidding. It was brutal, but a lot of people are now saying that they think it might have been intentional. Like whoever was flying it may have been
Mentally ill.
I don't know.
like
I was
Unstable.
I was about to say before you said it. And
I just don't know
feel
how
like
he didn't
that.
see the plane.
it was a woman.
Oh, it was a woman
She.
that
Yeah.
was flying it?
Yeah, it was a lesbian woman. I believe, right?
Oh.
The jokes just write themselves now.
Oh, we're not being offensive. I'm just stating a
No,
fact.
they've like scrubbed her whole like.
I believe it
online
was.
history.
I believe it was a lesbian woman who was flying the plane. I'm not making any implications about that. You guys are.
I didn't make any of that.
I don't know why.
That's Phil. That's all Phil.
What are people in the chat saying? Why are you saying that? I'm just stating a fact. I'm fairly certain. I'm not entirely sure, but I heard that people were saying that it was like some lesbian woman or something. It's sad that it happened. But the implication that people are bringing up with that video is that she was she didn't want to be alive any longer. And I'm not saying that's true. It's just what people are saying on the internet. I try to be a bit more respectful. It was a terrible accident. A lot of people lost their lives, and we don't know. So, all right, where are we at? We'll grab some more super chats here. Anthony T. Schrade says, my wife and I are trying to raise 5 daughters in this crazy world, hoping and praying for a positive outcome for our country and world, MAGA and Maha. I hope you live on a large piece of land with chickens and goats and maybe a mini cow. Because one thing that can really help you out is making your own food.
Mm-hmm.
Man, gardens are fantastic. I got to tell you, we don't have one anymore, but when we did, I love it. I wake up in the morning, I walk outside, I grab a zucchini, a handful of cherry tomatoes, then I grab some eggs right from the chickens, right from their butts, because they're sitting down on them. Fresh.
They're
in the morning.
warm.
They're still warm. And then you walk in and you just, boom, you throw it in the pan, and you got breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need nothing else. Milk, but I don't have a cow, so
You a raw milk person?
no.
No? Why not?
I am not a raw milk. Because I think I completely agree with Matt Walsh.
Oh, you think
like-
it's disgusting?
I don't think it's disgusting. I have no problem with people want to drink raw milk. I'm just like, pasteurization doesn't bother me. I don't like the generic store-bought plastic carton milk. I would prefer like organic farm fresh, but pasteurized is fine.
They're pasteurizing out all of the enzymes or whatever.
So they say.
Good for you.
You're also
Maybe.
pasteurizing
I don't
out
even. I don't have no dog in this fight. I don't even drink milk. I'm just like, I find it funny that people care so much.
Yeah, I actually don't drink a lot of milk at all.
I don't
'Cause I'm not
either.
a child.
Yeah, right.
Raw milk has this like taste to it though.
Yeah, it's good.
Tastes like a farm.
You have to get used to it. But like
European milk tastes different. When you go to-
I haven't had
yeah,
European milk.
Yeah, well, it's because whatever we do to the cows here, I think a lot of people are probably just drinking milk from like factory farmed, like corn-fed cattle. You know, tastes different.
Well, and who knows? I mean, look, they have they have all those chemicals they're injecting those cows with, and we know that they have chemicals that can make men who identify as women lactate. So like you don't know what the hell they're putting this.
There's some questions about whether that's
Not milk.
that's
It's
an
not milk.
abomination.
No,
Right,
that's
exactly.
not milk. That's some weird.
Abomination.
no what is it
Hormone
called?
secretion
Colostrum
or
or something.
They're not. No, there's no way that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Men take female hormones to induce lactation,
Yeah, it's not.
but they don't produce
And it-
milk.
I would
That
not drink
works.
it. Mary, do not
They,
drink
they
it.
produce some kind of like milk precursor. I forgot what it's called.
Well, colostrum is the first like batch
Yeah.
of breast milk after a woman gets
It's like
birth.
thicker though, and something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they call it liquid gold. Not whatever you're talking about that's coming out of
no.
a man's nipples. I don't believe that for a second. That's disgusting.
I think without hormones, men can actually lactate as well through physical inducement. There was like I can't remember which. It was probably like a Libs of TikTok thing that was posting about it. I don't know.
I'm not drinking it. I'm not letting my kids drink it. I'm not drinking it.
Man milk. That's what we call it.
Ew.
All right. What do we got? The text vet says, you all keep talking about the work from home and bashing people who do it, but none of you have experienced it. No, we're not all lazy, do-nothings getting paid. I go to the office and get on Zoom, same as at home. I am anti-work from home, 100%. It is destructive to industry, destructive to culture, and destructive to business.
It's antisocial, right? Like I kind of like going to work and seeing my coworkers. I think it's important.
Together, or you go to lunch with people that are with different groups of people during the week and stuff. There's a lot of like ideas and a lot of exchanges that you miss out on. Like I forget what I've heard a lot of anecdotes about this, but I don't have a specific one. But there's just this familiarity with people, and you miss out on like maybe you go out after work to go get dinner together with your friends, or everyone's going, oh, we're going here to grab lunch. Those kind of things. A lot of ideas are shared, and a lot of things can come from that. Things that are beneficial to the team, to the jobs that you're working on together and stuff. So I agree. You should, like, going to work is important. And I think that, like, even in like my field, when it comes to like writing songs, like you can write songs over the internet. Now you can email parts and come up with ideas and send other people ideas and stuff. But one of the things that we used to do with the band is like we would always say, no, you can't say no to anyone's idea. You have to try it. You can say you don't like it after you've tried it, but you can't say no, we're not going to try it. Because there's been so many times where like we had tried an idea and the two people talking don't always understand what the other person's saying. And sometimes you'll try an idea and it'll go bad, but that'll make a third person say, ooh, that made me think of this. Try doing this. And like that kind of creative stuff you can't fake, and you can't do it unless you're all in the same room. So there's a lot of people nowadays that write music that way over the internet and stuff like that. But I do think that there's value being in the same room with the same people, whether it be writing music or working together. That kind of stuff just spontaneously happens.
They say you are the summation of the 5 people who surround you. When you work remotely, you are surrounded by no one. Mm-hmm. You are watching TV, probably The Office. I don't know, Netflix got rid of that one. And someone said that I'm working from home right now. I'm not. I do not live in this building. Do not. And so what I find largely with the remote work stuff is like, it's basically what Phil's saying. If there's something, a project needs to be done. Maybe we want to film a documentary. Remote work, never going to happen. Mm-hmm. You put 10 people in a room, they're all hanging out. Someone says something, the other person, they have a conversation. Someone overhears it. Those spontaneous conversations don't happen remote.
Right.
A Zoom meeting will never accomplish that. Dude, literally, we've come up with so many ideas for things that we've done where it's like somebody was walking past someone else in the kitchen and then they made a joke and they were like, hey, actually, what if we actually did bake pizzas today? It's like, oh, man, let's do a thing where let's go. Never happens remote. Mm-hmm. So tolerance for remote work is limited. There's some jobs that are fine based on, certain limitations, obviously. But for the most part, I think it's bad. Let's go. Let's get some more super chats in here. Uh-oh, YouTube froze. There we go. Yep, figured. YouTube likes to crash.
That's weird.
Yeah, it always happens. Let's see. Ren says, will Canada still have free healthcare without the U.S.? Wasn't Trudeau proposing like COVID level recovery efforts if the tariffs went in place? They were going to like give guaranteed incomes to people and they were like going to go into emergency mode.
Really? I didn't hear that, no. So
I think Trump should keep the tariffs on. The Democrats right now are saying that Trump caved. They're saying that Trump gave up.
I think they're going to say that regardless. Like they have nothing.
Obviously, it's dumb because Trump issued a letter being like, because of these particular issues, fentanyl and immigration, tariff.
Yeah.
Then Mexico and Canada are like, okay, we'll alleviate those things with these measures. And Trump said, okay, 1 month pause. And they're like, haha, Trump lost. And it's like, what? Trump literally said these issues must be addressed. They addressed them, and now it's off.
Yeah, it's just cope. That's all it is. Just massive. Cope.
Maybe a little bit of seethe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of seethe. I'm sure. Actually, I think it's a lot of seethe, a little cope. They're angry. They're
those
upset.
tariffs, though, on Canada are no joke. In Toronto, I forget the name of the mayor, but right now in Toronto, they have 400,000 people in the surrounding area or whatever that are unemployed. They said if those tariffs go into effect, it would be another 400 to 600,000 people that are unemployed.
Wow.
So it would be devastating. And again, it goes back to that 40% of their GDP.
I just got to say, I don't care about Canada. It's not my responsibility.
I'm with you.
All right, everybody, smash the like button, share the show with everyone. Go to timcast.com right now. Click join us because that members only show is coming up and it's not so family friendly, but always fun and funny. Maybe not always. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Share the show. Subscribe if you haven't already. Terry, do you want to shout anything out?
No, you look, check out my organization, American Principles Project. We're building the NRA for family values. We're big family. There's big pharma, big oil, big tobacco. We're a big family, and I'm Schilling 1776 across all major social media networks.
You have an X account?
I do. Yeah, it's a Schilling 1776, SCHILLING 1776.
If you want to see more of me, you can go subscribe to Pop Culture Crisis on YouTube. We go live every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can also find me on X and Instagram at Mary Archived.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can subscribe to me there. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. New record just dropped Friday. It's called, the record's called Anti-Fragile. You can check out 4 singles, or you can go check out the whole thing on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube, Deezer. Don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.